I know it's tough to watch. It's tough to hear. That is a video reported of a teenager armed with an AK-47 firing at the door of a mother and her young child. This in Sweden. Part of a spike in crime that Sweden's seeing, or Europe is seeing, leading to a dramatic shift in political leadership in Sweden.
Newsmax correspondent Alex Salvi has the details this morning.
Sweden is emerging as the European country with the most fatal shootings per capita, in a phenomenon that's rocking the nation. The number of gun murders is 6 times higher than the combined figure of neighboring countries, Denmark, Finland, and Norway. Video circulating online provides a glimpse into the terror some families are facing as a teenager, armed with an AK-47, fires 15 bullets into the door of a mother and her young child outside of Stockholm. The home reportedly belongs to an ex-girlfriend of a well-known rapper, with the shooting evidently being some form of scare tactic. Analysts say rising crime in Sweden is one of the reasons why the populist right Sweden Democrats is seeing a surge in popularity across the country.
Immigration is perhaps not quite as hot as it was a few years ago, but is always there. Closely related to that, and perhaps becoming ever more important, is the question of law and order. And this is a question that the Sweden Democrats identify very strongly with and are generally regarded as having a strong position on.
The Sweden Democrats nearly doubled their support in the 2022 election, which led to them forming a ruling majority at the national level. Addressing crime is a major part of their agenda, with 15 home shootings and even bombings taking place in the first 6 weeks of the year. One of the more recent incidents to shock the country is the execution of 15-year-old Ali Shafai at a sushi bar in South Stockholm. Authorities say the Afghan refugee, who fled Taliban persecution in 2019, may be a victim of gang violence sweeping the city. He's at least the 4th person to be fatally shot in the Swedish capital since Christmas, as police scramble to get this crisis under control. Back to you.
All right, Alex Salvi reporting there. I want to bring in Mattias Karlsson. He is a member of Swedish Parliament and former head of his party as well. Thank you so much for taking the time, sir, on this. We were watching this video, we were listening to the sounds, and it is just shocking. And unfortunately, we see things like that here in the States as well. But what specifically is your reaction to the statistical rise in crimes and shootings in your country?
It's just horrifying. Sweden used to be one of the safest countries on earth. And during a few decades of socialist misgoverning, we went to one of the most violent nations in Europe. We had more bomb attacks per capita than Afghanistan a few years back. And we're seeing an immense rise in sexual crime. And it's just horrible, and people are fed up. And that's why also they are seeking a new political leadership.
Again, this trend where we've seen here in the States, criminals almost are not facing accountability for their actions. Could you speak to that? Is there sort of a justice system that you believe is offering the correct punishment for something that fits the crime?
It's not, and that's also the socialist liberal agenda. We had really liberal punishments. For example, you get a discount. The more crimes you commit, the lower punishment you get for each crime. And what kind of message does that send to criminals?
You point that out, and you can only think, at least for us here in the United States, that there are many certain cities, many metropolitan cities led by Democratic governors, Democratic leadership, mayors, that do unfortunately correlate with a rise in crime, specifically in major cities. Are you able to pay attention to that, obviously being in Sweden, but do you see some of the correlation between what you're seeing unfold in Sweden, perhaps what's happening in the States as well?
Yeah, I can see clear correlations. It's a trend. Everywhere where socialists and liberals are governing, security for ordinary citizens is less. And you see it in my country, you see it all over Europe, we see it in America. Just to mention your current president, Joe Biden, he visited Sweden in 2017. And he came just a few months after we had the worst terrorist attack we ever had in our history of our country. Many people were killed, including an 11-year-old girl going out to buy ice cream. Biden came in a few months later, and this terrorist attack was due to the fact that we had unregulated immigration. It was an ISIS supporter, illegal immigrant, who committed this crime. And Biden came to Sweden, and the only thing he did was to give a press conference and celebrate the socialist government's open border policy, saying that Sweden was an example to the world. More countries in Europe should do the same as Sweden did. And it's fair to say that many Swedes were less than impressed by that.
You know, we're coming up on the one-year mark of the ongoing war in Ukraine. Of course, a lot of European countries and the United States have contributed to aid for the Ukrainians in their fight against Russia. The president was in Europe last year. He's intended to perhaps go to Poland in March, so maybe a few months from now. But here's what happened when he interacted with a CNN reporter. I believe we have that sound. Let's take a listen.
Why are you so confident he'll change his behavior, Mr. President?
Yeah, I'm not confident changing behavior. What the hell? What do you do all the time?
So
when did I say I was confident?
You said in the next 6 months you'll be able to determine.
What I said was, let's get it straight. I said what will change their behavior is that the rest of the world reacts to them and it diminishes their standing in the world. I'm not confident of anything. I'm just stating a fact.
So that was in June of last year, so some time has passed since then. But maybe you could speak on the Swedish Parliament and overall view of the United States leader.
I think we are all aware that we are in dangerous times. We are seeing a challenge to the West from China, from Russia and other forces, Iran, for example. And we are all dependent, the smaller Western nations are all dependent on a strong leadership from the American government. And there is concern in Europe about the cognitive abilities of the American president, about the lack of strong leadership that we have been seeing for some time now.
I'll close with this. In terms of concerns, there is a growing concern in this country over the past several years now about conservative voices being able to get out, to share the diversity of thought. Just recently, one of the cable networks here, DirecTV, has canceled this network. So if they had this provider, they can't see this interview that we're having with you right now. They may have an option to go somewhere else, but some do not. Do you have any concern there when you watch that playoff in terms of limiting conservative voices?
That's a trend we're seeing in Europe as well, and I think we need to be really wary about this, because it boils down to democracy, that you need to be able to listen to different perspectives for the citizens to form their opinion. And the deplatforming of conservative voices are deeply concerning to me and to many others, governments in Europe as well. And we need to have more debate, more discussions, and less deplatforming.
You have to speak out if you're concerned. We've heard from a lot of viewers who have voiced their support for Newsmax and this very network. It offers the chance to bring these interviews, these conversations to our viewers. Thank you so much for joining us today. Mattias Karlsson, member of Swedish Parliament. Thank you so much.